From the hillsides to the boardrooms, we examine the legal ganja industry. Here's Yannick Williams with part 2 of Ganja Gold.
Data from industry regulators show that only a small percentage of licenses are held by traditional cultivators, raising concerns about equity and access. And as the industry expands, so too does the divide between those who grow the crop and those who profit from it 10 years later after being decriminalized. With legalization came structure, and with structure came opportunity for investment. But entering the legal market requires significant capital, millions of dollars in some cases, putting it out of reach for many traditional farmers.
The licensing process is accessible to everyone. Traditional farmers are defined as those persons who would have been growing ganja before it became decriminalized. So the licensing process is pretty much available to anyone who is willing to go through the application process.
The CLA, established in 2015 under the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, regulates Jamaica's legal cannabis. Amendments to the dangerous drug regulations will introduce delivery service, standardized license period, and short-term permits for events, among others. Since 2025, 196 licenses had been issued by the CLA, but concerns remain about who controls them. Critics argue that access to these licenses is not easy for everyone.
It is a process to acquire a license. There's some due diligence that has to be done. There's some verification of the supporting documents that will be submitted. There is a submission of police record, proof of identification, and so on.
In the meantime, some experts disagree with the requirement that traditional farmers must obtain license.
So you ask yourself, when we learn economics, what do we learn in economics about what is called an infant industry? When you have an infant industry, what you do is to create incentives to grow the industry. And when the industry is at a certain size, then you start to transition from an infant into adult, which means you start to face some of the standard regulations for regular businesses, including things like fees, taxes, etc.
Between 2019 and 2020 alone, trade between licensed operators was valued at over US 1.3 million, more than 200 million Jamaican dollars, and that figure excludes retail sales. And as more licenses are issued, that value continues to grow, signaling an industry with significant economic potential. But entry comes at a cost.
Some people may view the cost as being prohibitive, but what the agency has done through our minister, Senator the Honorable Albin Hill, he has given us a mandate to facilitate business. And with that mandate, the board of directors had approved a deferment policy. We are able to seek through the board an approval to give them a payment plan.
As for small traditional cultivators within the industry,
we recently launched some changes to our regulations that would allow for more inclusion. There is the special cultivator transitional permit, and that allows for the small-scale person, someone who can't afford the fees up front, to be able to come in and to matriculate into the license regime over 2 years. There's also a community permit that we have now included in our regulations, and that allows for a grouping of persons to be able to come together and to grow as much as 10 acres of ganja together.
But many farmers still feel excluded from the industry.
From a once underground trade to now a tightly regulated industry, ganja in Jamaica is now big business, generating millions of dollars in the legal market. But as investment grows, so does concerns that ownership is being concentrated among those with capital.
In part 3, we look at who owns the industry and what can be done to ensure inclusion. Yannick Williams, TVJ News.